Hello, Africa. Welcome to Investments for Impact, a Villgro Africa podcast. In this season, we're focused on the topic of fundraising. Welcome to our third episode where we discuss grant funding. Thank you for joining us. Hi, Elizabeth. It's great to meet you and welcome to the Villgro Africa podcast. So I'd like us to get started by hearing a bit about you. If you could just tell us a bit about your background and also about your work at Africa Grant Advisors.
Thank you very much, Moses, for having me in this session. So I'm Elizabeth Laitete. I am a manager at the Africa Grant Advisors. My background has been in program management for the last 10 years. I've been managing companies in the renewable energy space, funded by grants majorly. In my role previously to joining Africa Grant Advisors, I was involved in a lot of work doing evaluation of grant applications and assessing whether they are eligible for funding, whether they meet the criteria, and also assessing the impact that they will be providing for the program that they've applied to. So in my new current role at Africa Grant Advisors, I'm supporting companies to do their applications for grants funding, enabling them to look for the perfect opportunity that will enable their companies to raise grants to be able to achieve the strategies that they want to achieve. So in a nutshell, that's what I have been doing.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Just digging a bit deeper into Africa Grant Advisors. So, what sector would you say you play in? Like, there aren't too many organizations of your kind. So, if you could just tell us a bit, where do you position yourself as a company?
So we serve a very unique space in the grant fundraising bit, right? So we have a side where they are the grant funders, the people who are providing the financing, right? And then we have the other side of the companies who are applying for these grant facilities. So we serve as they go between these two companies, right? We support the grant applicants to be able to identify the right opportunities and be able to put down proposals that are well written and relevant to the programs they are applying for. So the thing we are serving the market more or less is enabling people to put their mind into paper, because we notice that very many organizations really, they do know what they want to do. The idea is there, they have the team, but they don't know how to write it. And if you're not able to write it in a proper manner that is understandable to the donor, then access to that funding might be difficult. The grant space is really competitive. So many people are looking for grants. Everyone feels it's free money, right? So everyone is applying. So with so many people applying, you really have to be top of the cream to be able to grab those grants, noting that they are very limited and they can't give every other company. So having the right tools to do the proper application really helps a lot of these companies. And that's where we come in and support them with those tools to be able to do proper applications.
Thank you for that. I picked up on something that you said. You talked about grant being free money, and that really is interesting for me because it sets us up for the next question. I wanted to find out from you, the idea of offering grants to the private sector can be seen as counterintuitive. So I'd like to hear your view on the justification for funding companies.
So yes, I said grants is free money because that's what everyone thinks, but it's not free. It comes with requirements and conditions, and there's a lot that is tied to a grant. So the importance of grants for companies is to enable them to test either business models or products that have not been tested yet. And by doing that, it's very hard to raise commercial funding for such a thing If you go to, let's say, an equity investor or a commercial investor, a debt lender, and give them an idea that has not yet been tested in the market, they are most likely to say no, because for them, they want the return that comes from the investment. But then grant, most donors, the return they're looking for in terms of grants is having tested something different in the market and demonstrating that that works. For them, they also want to they want to know what impact can their money serve, right? So grants are a riskier kind of investor. Grant funders are riskier investors. They take the risk to invest on things that haven't been tested, and they're willing to go the extra mile and support companies to test these products, provide technical assistance, and see if it works. They are not afraid to fail because that's the purpose of grants, to introduce something new. And it's important for grants, especially for organizations that are starting up and are trying new things that have not been seen in the market. Because now, once the trial phase is over and it has worked, then they're able to scale and they're able to now attract other forms of funding that will now be able to, enable them to move to the next level of scaling.
Thank you, thank you. That's a really good explanation. Now, our audience for this podcast is startups, and I would like you to just, as we begin, just give us an idea of how the landscape looks like in terms of funders who are out there and willing to de-risk startups, as you said. How does it look like? What are the opportunities for African startups?
Uh, so for startups, I would say there are not so many opportunities out there for startups. And I think this has really changed over the last few years, because initially, when most donors were giving grants to companies, they would give fairly new companies with no track record, nothing to report. But then the landscape has changed a bit. So donors are really looking at solutions that have already been tested, or maybe let me not say it's tested, but more or less you've already developed a product. It's a viable product. You've introduced it to the market, tested it with a very small sample of people, and now you want to do a bigger test. That one, now donors are interested in that. But then if you have no product and you want to start from nothing with the use of grants, then it becomes a bit difficult. However, there are donors who do that. They fund research specifically. So they would fund you to research on that product, develop it, and now take it to market. So you have to be very target. You have to really target which donor works for you, like which donor would fund you for research and development of a product, which donor would fund you to do market rollout for the first time, and which donor would want you to scale. So it's very important to know where these donors want to focus their attention. And we've also seen in the recent past that there's a lot of acceleration programs coming up. And these ones are mainly targeting startup companies, companies that are very young, though they have a little money, but then it also comes with a lot of support in terms of technical assistance to be able to get to the companies to the next level of funding. So the technical assistance would be things like helping them fundraise, helping them come up with pitch decks, helping them in their product development, especially if they have expertise themselves to support the companies. They do that. The other one would also be with the marketing strategy. They help the companies establish their marketing strategies and start the market rollout. So there are different kinds of funding for different kinds of startups. Some startups have products; they just need the funding to be able to buy more products and get them out to the market. So it all varies from company to company.
So what I hear you saying is that grants are available, yes, but they're scarce. And in terms of entry points, you're saying that if you're looking for a grant, you won't find a grant for pre-seed kind of at a pre-seed kind of level. Funders are looking for more uh, early traction type uh, companies, companies that have a bit of a track record, yeah. And in line with that, I'm also curious to hear if that's okay with you to tell us um, who are some of those donors? Could you name some of the donors in this space who are funding companies, just so that our audience gets an idea?
Okay, so we have donors like the USAID. USAID have different programs, right, for different levels. So one of their programs would be called DIV, which is one of their biggest programs. So for a program like DIV, they have three phases, right? They have the initial phase, which they consider the research phase. And the funding available for that kind of a phase is not more than $300,000. Then they have the next phase, which they call uh, pilot to scale. So you've done the research, you've verified that this product is viable. Then now they want to support you to now go to the next level of testing the market, right? And then now they have the third stage of scaling. So such a donor has three phases, right? They support companies from early stage all the way to very mature companies. And so that's more or less like a perfect donor who provides, different kinds of support for different levels of companies. We also have the Energy Catalyst uh, fund by Innovate UK. So they provide different levels of funding as well. So when you're applying for funding from such a donor, you choose the level that your organization falls in. Are you doing research, or are you doing product development, or are you doing a scale up? Like you already have a product and you really want to push it out in the market in large scale. So yeah, those are two donors with funding that cuts across different levels of organization.
Thank you, thank you. So, in terms of the actual applications, what would you say donors are looking for? So, if you could just give us like a standard criteria that you see in your space for what donors would want an applicant uh, to present when applying.
So first of all, they would want to know who you are as a company, right? Uh, when were you incorporated? What have you been doing? Uh, who is behind the company? Like who are the investors? Who are the shareholders? They would want to know who more or less who is behind setting up this kind of a company. They would also want to know uh, the technologies that you provide. Um, how far have you reached? Are you still starting? Are you still, have you developed the product to a certain stage and now you're looking to take it to another stage? So you more or less have to demonstrate what stage of operations you are at. Uh, in case you've already started doing some work on the ground, you've already done a market rollout, they would want to know from this market rollout, what are the learnings that are coming out of it? And how is this feeding into now what you are applying for? Like, let's say you've identified from the market rollout, you rolled out a product, it was fairly new, and the customers have come back with information they want to make one or two or three changes. Uh, are you applying for this funding to enable you to do these changes and now roll out the final product? Uh, what are the learnings that came out from that uh, rollout? Like who benefited? What were they benefiting on? Right? Did they get more money out of owning the new product that you gave them? Did their lives change from that? So those are the things that a grant funder would want to know. Are you trying to change lives with your business? And then the other one would be, what is the plan, right? So you're applying for a project. you want to do this. What is the strategy? How do you plan to roll out this product? Are you planning to hire a team? Are you planning to work with local agents, something like that? And then they would also want you to come up with a budget, more or less, like how much would it cost you to do this project? And then so that budget would more or less inform the funding that you're requesting from them. And then the other bit is some donors require you to co-fund the project together. So this is the project that you want to do. This is the total money that you need. So you ask for the donor for some of the money, but then it's also important to also put in your money as a company. Could be cash, could be in kind investment, but then showing that you're able to invest as well in your business gives them the confidence that you really want this project to work and you have your skin in the game. So yeah, it makes them more confident to want to invest in you if you are also investing in yourself. And then yeah, they would also want to know the story, like how did you come up with this idea? What motivated you to get to the point of starting this company or introducing these products, right? What informed your decision to go forward with this plan?
Thank you. Thank you. That's quite detailed. So I hear you saying team, technology, traction. You're also talking about your history and your future plans, both financial and in terms of impact that you want to create. Um, Now, changing gears a bit and looking at it from a different perspective, what would you say are some of the key mistakes you see startups making or companies applying for grants making? What do you think are the areas that they should watch out for from your experience?
So yeah, one of the main areas I would say would be, so the biggest one is more or less trying to apply for a grant that you're not eligible for, right? So most of this call for proposals come with a whole, description of what the donor is looking for, the technology they're looking for, what they're looking to achieve with this project. So you find that some companies just want to apply for any grant that is available, whether or not it's eligible for them. Like you have, let's say, agricultural products, and you want to apply for a renewable energy program. So some of those are very obvious pitfalls, but I have seen quite a number of companies really trying to force an application into a program that they do not completely fit in. So more or less, that's a waste of time because there's no way you would be considered for that kind of a program. The next one would be submitting a generic application, right? You're not ensuring that the application you're doing is tailor-made for your company. You need to highlight the specifics of your company in your application. Some people just do generic applications and they just repeat the statements they have seen in the call for proposal in the application. So you see, maybe the call for application is saying, we would like to ensure that we cover women and youth. And you'll see a company just bringing the same statement in the application that we will ensure we are focusing on women and youth. But then you're not saying how you're going to do that. So you need to take the call for proposal and now incorporate it into the company's operations. So you say, we will reach out to men and women by hiring women specifically for this role, or looking out for youth who would be doing this particular kind of work. So yeah, you have to really tailor suit it to your company and the application. And then the other pitfall would be the lack of focus. So you'd find an application where they're not saying exactly what they're going to do. So very generic. You're not saying the products you're going to provide. You're not saying who you're going to target. You're just saying we'll target households in sub-Saharan Africa. That is too broad. You need to say a specific country, a specific region in that country, because if a donor is giving you $100,000, there's no way you're going to be able to roll out a product in the entire country. Let's say Kenya, for example. That's not practical. So you have to be very practical in terms of who is your focus market. You're targeting a specific market in a specific region, and it makes sense for the company to roll out in that specific region, looking at the funding that is available and also, the money that you have available to you. The other one is also, now that also feeds into having unrealistic targets. So you're asking for, let's say, $300,000, and you're saying you're going to reach out to 300,000 households. Yet the product itself, you're not even covering the product cost with what you're requesting. So you have to be very realistic in terms of what you're projecting to achieve in terms of impact, and also what you're projecting to achieve in terms of sales. There's no way you would be having sales of, let's say, 5,000, and then with this project you expect you're going to be having $1 million worth of sales. That's not going to happen. It has to grow organically. So your projections need to reflect something that is realistic for the donor, and considering that some money is coming from them. But then at the end of the day, a company can only achieve so much based on what they've achieved historically.
Thank you. Just a follow up on something you said. You talked about pressure to impress, that's how I translated it. Uh, Giving unrealistic targets and that sort of thing. How would you advise that companies manage that? Because on the one hand, you told us earlier there's competition for grants, so you want to be able to, put on a strong application, and part of that includes numbers. So how do you manage the pressure to impress on the one hand by being able to kind of put forth a strong numbers, say, of beneficiaries against the need to also be realistic?
Yeah. So yeah, it's a tricky balance, but you have to manage that balance because on one hand, the donor will be asking for your historical data, right? They will ask for the historical financial statements, and that's part of their process of assessing whether you're eligible and whether whatever you're proposing will work. So you have to do it in a way where, so historically, this is how you've performed. And most likely, you were not really able to perform optimally because you didn't have sufficient funding. So with this funding coming in, right, you need to have proper projections of how this funding will kind of take you to the next level and not really take you 10 miles away. Because depending on how much the donor is giving you, you really have to be realistic in terms of how much you will be able to deliver with that particular amount of money. And you don't have to go all out and say, I will be able to deliver $1 million uh, in terms of impact. Yet, based on the amount of money you use, because you're the person on the ground, you're the person operating this business. So you know how much it costs you. So you need to appropriately look at how much this additional funding would add on into your business to be able to give you the extra impact that you need. And the perfect way would be to say, without this funding, and that's one of the questions the donors usually ask. What is the additionality that this funding is bringing to your company? And what you would say would be, without this funding, I would only be able to achieve this much. But with this funding coming in and supporting me in 1, 2, 3 activities, I will be able to then achieve this level of impact in the community. So it's more of, trying to show them that if you didn't give me this funding, I wouldn't reach this. But with your funding, I'm able to support this number of people. And companies should not be afraid of, showing low numbers. I don't think it's not a game of numbers when it comes to donor funding. It's a game of reality, like what makes sense for the company, what makes sense for the donor. So having that balance is going to be very important for the companies.
Thank you very much, and I really like that. So if you're going to compromise, you're better coming with low numbers that are more realistic and based on your history than trying to kind of impress and present uh, a more optimistic kind of situation. Now, moving on, I'm also curious to find out, based on what you've told us, what would you say are the key skills needed to successfully apply? And in line with that, maybe you could tell us how Africa Grant Advisors is able to speak to gaps that companies have in terms of skills.
Okay. Uh, so the skills you need is to be able to, look at a call for proposal very critically, right? And assess what exactly is this donor looking at? What is he looking for? And, looking at your company as, am I providing the solution that this donor is looking to, solve in the community? So we do at Africa Grant Advisors is we work with the companies before we even start the application. We try and understand what is this company doing, what are they looking to do in the future, right? And it doesn't have to be far off in the future, but in the near future, right? So what is your strategy? Like, you're looking to reach this number of people, you're looking to expand into this number of markets, and this is the product that you're looking to expand with, right? So with all that information about this company, what they do, their product, then we are able to assess from our pipeline of donors to see where would this company really fall in terms of donor funding. Who would be the best donor to fund this company for this specific project that they want to do? So it all lies with identifying the perfect donor for the perfect project. So it's like, marrying two people who don't know each other yet, but then we come as the, go between and help them identify each other. So yeah, having that ability to find the right program to apply to is very important. But then also again, being able to put down what exactly you do as a company and how it feeds into the program that you're applying for is very important. And that's where we also really support our companies to tell them. So these questions, there are several questions that you need to answer in a grant application. So we help them to digest, what is this question looking for? How should we answer it? What should we put in that, in the statement that would make this application very attractive to the donor, right? How do we summarize what the company does in a way that is understandable to everyone else? Because some companies have very technical people with very technical knowledge, but then sometimes applications don't need too much technical information, right? You need to balance some technical and some, information that is understandable from a layman's perspective. So it's important to have the balance of both and, to identify which is the right opportunity for you to pursue. And companies should not be forced to change their strategy in order to fit into their program, right? It's going to be very hard for a company to implement if they force themselves to apply to a program that they clearly don't fit. Or, so you find a company that does business to business kind of a model and they force themselves to apply into a program where they're forced to work with customers directly. And it becomes very hard for them to collect impact data because it's not their core. They don't do customer to customer. They do customer to business. So it's important for you to identify which program specifically that you would fit into, and that will not cost you too much money to be able to monitor and implement. Because you might think, okay, this grant will help me do that, but then it costs you a lot more than what you're getting from that grant to implement. That will not make sense at all.
Thank you. Do you have success stories that you could share from your work?
Yes, we have been able to help companies raise funding. Uh, Companies that have previously struggled to, raise funding from a specific donor. They've tried to do applications to that particular donor, but they were not getting it, and they didn't understand why. And then when they start working with us, we were able to help them, realize that some of these opportunities are not for them, and we were able to help them identify the right opportunities, and also helped them write proper proposals to some of the donors that they missed out on. And then, by now demonstrating themselves, or showing exactly what they do in a proper way, help them to now unlock that funding with those donors. So yes, we've had very many success stories with companies we've worked with, and most of them come to us once they've tried doing applications to several opportunities and they're not getting it. And when you look at the profile of that company, you think this is a very good company. What they're doing is really good and it's very attractive to donor. The problem is just that they're not able to put it down in writing. And some bigger companies have fundraising departments within them. They have writers who do the writing for them, but there are companies that don't have that specific department, right? And you'd find maybe the CEO or the top managements are the ones who are struggling to do the applications, but then they don't have enough time to dedicate to doing the applications. So by outsourcing it to a company like us, then they're able to focus on doing their business, and we now provide the service of helping them fundraise.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Um, are there any other resources out there in the ecosystem or platforms that you can recommend for startups that are looking for grants?
Yeah. So, there are different sites where you would see grant opportunities available, though you might not have the visibility of all opportunities. Uh, but I think DevX would be a very good resource for a company to use to check on what opportunities are available. And the good thing about DevX is you're able to filter and give it the specifics of what you're looking for. You would say funding in agro processing in a certain country, and then it would give you all donors who would be funding for that particular sector in that particular country. But then it's not 100% that you'd find everything there. Opportunities come and go. Sometimes there are opportunities, sometimes there are no opportunities. So it's a lot also to do with it's also a lot. There's a lot of waiting that is required for in terms of grants fundraising. You have to be very patient and look for opportunities as often as you can. The other one would be LinkedIn. I think very many donors, very many funders put out calls in LinkedIn. They share details about we've released this program. We are looking to fund this and that, and they give links to now the complete call for proposal. So LinkedIn is also a very good resource that a startup can use to more or less see if there's funding. But then with LinkedIn, you have to be it's not a search engine, right? It's just a platform where you have to be very much attentive, follow all these companies that provide funding, and frequently look and check if they've published any call for applications. And then also going to the websites of these donors, right? Go to the USAID website, go to the the UK website, check what are they doing, what programs are they going into, do they have any requests that they are making for people to apply for proposal. So yeah, um, looking for funding it's a lot of work. Like it's just like looking for a job, right? You have to do searches in every single application that you would know, any professional application that you know, just go there, look for it. Any website of a company that you know, go into that website, check on the resources, check on any new news updates coming from those websites. Check, are they releasing a new program? Because even DevX will lead you to a company website. So you can track a specific donor if you're really interested in working with that donor. And when they put up a call, then you can do the application. It would also be important for, if you're really looking to raise funding, go to conferences, go to workshops, network with people in those workshops and conferences, because a lot of information sometimes is delivered through grapevine. So I know someone who knows someone who knows someone. So during those workshops, while you're interacting and you tell people, this is what I do, I'm looking for funding, they can tell you, oh, a certain company or a certain organization or a certain person would help you in terms of, uh, giving you where you can find that funding. So networking is also very important when it comes to fundraising. Some donors don't release call for applications. They just inform people in their contacts. So when you network, then you're able to reach out to quite a number of people who would have a lot more information than what is published.
Thank you for that last bit, especially because I have done a bit of fundraising and have come to find that it is true that it really helps to be visible, to be seen, and also to know the right people in the right places. Now, at the beginning, you told us that the purpose of grants is really for companies, that is to de-risk, to test uh, business models and to create impact. Now, this is my last question. I'm just um, curious to find out, when you look at your portfolio, your customers, how well do they do after the funding? Is the funding playing the role intended of catalyzing more funding downstream?
Yes, it does. Depending on the funding that you unlock, it does. It essentially should help you take you to the next level. Uh, Grant funding is not supposed to be the only funding companies look out for, right? It should be like the beginning to help you start the race towards something, right? So it de-risks you in the first stages where, everything is risky. No one really, no one believes in you or your company. And so these grants would enable you to demonstrate that whatever you believe in works. Then now that would be able to make you more attractive to others. So you would even find that a small grant by a company, uh, and then some of these donors even publicize that we funded this company and this is how much impact they've done and we are really proud of what they've done. That alone helps you attract other investors. Other donors will come looking for you and say, we want to work with you in your, expansion strategy. Where are you going next? Can we support you with that? So identifying the right opportunity is very important because it can take you to the next level of being able to, attract other people into your business, be it other donors, be it other equity investors and other debt funders. But yes, we have seen that change happening in quite a number of companies. Um, I could mention one of our companies that we support is BAN. I'm sure you've noticed BAN has really done a lot of fundraising in the past, right? So you'd find that they started with an application here and there, they got funding here and there, and then what donors do, they like to publicize what they've done. right? They like to brag that we've invested in this company and this is the impact we are creating. So by doing that, it helps that same company unlock more funding from other people because so many other donors, so many other investors would be interested in being associated with you, being associated with your success story. So yes, grants do catalyze, help companies to, elevate what they're doing and, be recognized out there.
Thank you very much, Elizabeth. This has been a very interesting conversation. Um, I think the role that you're playing in the ecosystem is very important, as you told us, and I hope more and more companies are able to find you and benefit from the service that you're providing. So that brings us to the end of our podcast for today. Thank you.